wrote an article, and she was very open about her experiences. And do you want to give a little short tidbit about what you've gone through?
Yeah, very, very quickly. Yeah.
Washington
It
Post.
was Washington Post, and it was a little odd talking about such personal, intimate things about your life to a national publication, but one of the reasons I decided to do so when Dr. Sechkin brought it up is because I really had a hard time getting diagnosed. I feel like until I came to see him and his team, I really self-diagnosed by Googling a lot. And I thought that if it's out there, someone one day can look up endo and kidney and pull it up and run to their doctor, because I was very lucky, actually. For most of my life, I was extraordinarily average in terms of health. I only started exhibiting symptoms in 2011, and my symptoms were very odd. I had pain in my lower back and going down my leg. I didn't have any pain in my pelvis. I didn't have, I just had my period, cramps, but nothing really extraordinary, or so I thought. And when I went to an internist, my OBGYN, with whom I've been for many years, they did pelvic sonogram, vaginal sonogram, uterine biopsy, all was fine. Everyone looked at me and said, you're getting old, you're getting fat, it's a sciatica, go exercise, lose some weight, which is, I'm not saying it's not valid, I could lose some weight. And I started doing Pilates, I started doing all kinds of things for my back, and nothing would happen. And actually, every time I'd have my period, pain would get worse, and a few years later, it wasn't only during my period, it was also 2 weeks after my period. So I would have this really weird, I would be really miserable for 2 to 3 weeks out of the month, and then I felt absolutely fine. So it was just like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of I guess, symptoms. And at some point, I started going to very prominent OBGYNs in New York City who were recommended, and I would, at that point, started doing my own research, and I would say, well, I've been reading about this thing called endometriosis. Can it be? And I learned this word when I was going to see those doctors. No, because endometriosis does not present itself in this way. So this is my claim to be my doctor. It doesn't present itself in that way. Because I always had back pain and lower leg pain. And I'll speak very quickly. So one day I went for another vaginal and pelvic ultrasound, and no one could see my left ovary, and they flipped on me and they sent me for an abdominal ultrasound. And it turned out that my kidney died. It was, things were pressing on my ureter. No one knew why, but nothing was draining. So the kidney was 4 times its size and basically not functioning. And I just, once again, I went to my friendly Google. I looked up best endo specialist in New York City, and who came up. And I made an appointment, went in, and I think there was no doubt in your mind when you saw me. You actually said to me, Dr. Sechkin said to me, it's much worse than you think, Lena. Because, yes, it was endo, of course. It did kill my kidney. There were also bowel implications. I had to have a hysterectomy and all those other words, so everything is gone now. And I have to say, just what Dr. Redwine and Dr. Sechkin said a few minutes ago, I was one of those patients, and Dr. Gelbert probably remembers this. I went in, I was like all sideways. I couldn't sit up. I was in so much pain. And after my surgery, I woke up, and I felt so much better. And it was amazing because even though like everything was gone and I was recovering from this 9-hour surgery, I immediately felt better. And I felt the need to tell that to everyone loudly. So, and that's really why the story came out. So no one really has to spend 7 years Googling their symptoms and going to doctors and being told, you're fat, exercise.
You're awesome.
Thank you so much, Lena.
Isn't that awesome? Makes my story seem...
Every story is valid.
I'm Melissa Boudreau. I'm 39, and I've been suffering since probably 13. Very similar story to probably many of you out in the crowd. Painful cramps. I missed my high school graduation. I was told it was normal, and I remember my grandma going, I had that too. It's totally normal. And so from then on out, I just thought it was normal. I would pass out. My school nurse said, are you on drugs? And I was like, no. And she literally thought I was on drugs because I was, if any of you have experienced this, rocking back and forth in so much pain, sweating, couldn't control myself, and dealt with that for years. And I was on birth control very similar stories to everybody else. I changed my diet, I did everything. And then finally I started to feel sick every single day. And I was like, something's wrong with my stomach. Something's with my stomach. So I had every GI test known to man, barium, upper GI, lower GI, all of the tests. And they came back and they said, IBS. Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. So I was like, I know something else is wrong. My intuition knew something else was wrong. So I started Googling, and this was I had to bring my timeline because this is a long time. This was in 2004. So Google wasn't as robust as it is today. And I remember 2 days of doing that, I saw something that said women who are diagnosed with IBS have this word, endometriosis. No idea what that meant. Back in the day, there were bookstores. And I'm from Detroit, so I think New York still has bookstores, but there's none in Detroit. And I found a book about endometriosis at Borders, which is no longer in business. And I sat on the floor, and I remember crying because every symptom I had, every single, the cramps, all of it, and these GI things, and I was frustrated. I called my OB the next day and said, I need an appointment. And I went and saw her and I said, this is what I have. And she said, okay, let's do an ultrasound, scheduled me for surgery, had my first laparoscopic surgery, and she was like, it's so crazy in there, I didn't know what to do. That's what my doctor said to me. Okay, cool. So I started doing crazy research. Facebook didn't exist in those days, so I found a board that said, excision is the only way, didn't know what that meant, started doing crazy research, met another woman from Michigan who had it. So then I scheduled an excision surgery. I'll go faster because I have a long history. Ended up having 2 excision surgeries with some complications, and then had another surgery back in Michigan where the doctor told me he did excision. The other ones were out of state. He didn't end up doing excision, and he ended up taking my left ovarian tube because I kept getting these large endometriomas. They just kept coming back. So he said, all of your tissue is damaged. We took it out. You should have no more problems after that. So that was in 2009. So now I'm dealing with these health issues, and I'm having almost a surgery every single year. After that 2009 surgery, it changed everything about my life. No caffeine, limited booze, changed my diet, and I did feel better, and I was better for about 8 years. I still had painful periods, but I wasn't sick every single day, so I was really happy about that. And then starting in the beginning of last year, in 2018, I started to have really bad cramps again and pain every day. And then I kind of ignored it. I think I was in denial. I didn't want to be sick again. And I think that's something really common with women that have endometriosis is you go into this denial place. And I didn't want to admit to myself that I was sick. And I do remember sitting my husband down one day and I said, something's wrong. And he was like, yeah, I know, you're getting into bed every day after work. That's not who you are. So I luckily came to this patient day last year, and it changed my life. On a whim, my intuition said to come. I didn't know anyone here. I didn't know anything about it. And I learned a ton of things, and I made amazing connections when I was here, and it literally changed and saved my life coming here last year. I admitted to myself that I wasn't feeling well, got the medical care I needed, and we found out that I had it very extensively in my bowel, and my bowel literally looked like a balloon animal. That's what the doctor said. So I was at risk of potentially having my bowel rupture or something because it was literally wrapped all the way through my bowel. So I also had lost a ton of weight before the surgery and was very, very sick. I was at a wedding in Colorado like a couple weeks before my surgery, and I remember I literally didn't eat for like 5 days, and I was like, I'm fine. This is no big deal. Obviously, that was a clear indicator, but I can say today that I do not have any pain with my period. I still have some stomach issues, but I can go to the gym on the first day of my period. So if that says anything about the last excision and 6th surgery that I had, I'm pretty happy about it. So I really want to thank Dr. Sechka and the EFA for doing these types of events. I don't think people understand how valuable these are in making connections with other patients. We all support each other every single day, and I think that that's such a huge thing for us. And I don't want to take any more time, so thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone. I'm Winnie, and I had my first surgery when I was 19 years old. It was open scar surgery, and the doctor removed the endometriosis. And sorry, for the next 10 years, I was on birth control pills. But then, so on the birth controls, the last 4 pills, you know that those are the days that it will hurt the most. So in college and even work, I would schedule my finals to not be on those days, so it would adjust my life for endo rather than living my life freely and picking classes in college that I want to take. After graduation, I went to China for my graduation trip. Then I came back immediately, and I felt this really sharp pain in my back. It was a bucket of urine. It was a bucket of liquid. I had severe right hydronephrosis. I was sent into the ER at Mount Sinai, and they couldn't figure out it was endo as the culprit. So what they did is a surgery from the back where they put a hole to drain the urine from my kidney. Then I was having period pain every single month. And then I met Dr. Seshkin the very first day, and he said, if you were my daughter, I'll send you to the ER right away. So there I was, sent to Lenox Hospital. And Dr. Seshkin scheduled a surgery with colorectal surgeon, urologist. I was in there for 9 hours to reattach my ureter to my kidney. I had a bowel resection as well. And then I had a stent up in my ureter for the past several months. But after surgery, the pain was real. It got even worse every single month. So 6 months later, as of last year, in February 2018, I was in for another surgery. I was in there for 13 hours. I woke up with hysterectomy, with an ileostomy bag, which my brother says is a poop bag. And I had a Foley on for several months as well as a ureter stent. So the journey has been real. My rectum was closing very quickly because I'm not using the rectum right. I was using the ileostomy bag. So then within 3 months, I had the ileostomy bag removed so I could operate like a regular, normal human being. Sorry, I have so much emotions right now. Maybe because I've never presented before a big audience and sharing my story. Just like how I didn't share my story for the last 10 years. I just want everyone to know that endometriosis is not just in the pelvic region. It can travel up in all different areas of your body. And it's not just a woman issue itself. Men out there, please realize if you have mothers, sisters, colleagues, girlfriends out there, they're in pain because of not just bad cramps, it's endo. Have them reach out to the right doctor. I'm sorry, I just can't do this right. Thank you.
You are so brave. So brave. Yeah. I'm emotional, but I feel lucky. You know, I do feel lucky. My name is Tanya Raymond. I'm 35 years old. I have stage 4 endometriosis. I was diagnosed back in 2014. imagined that I had these symptoms from a teenager, but I never paid attention to them. I just thought I had a normal period. It was heavy, and that was about it. But in my late 20s, I thought something was wrong. Like you, Melissa, they told me I had IBS. I had this extreme bloating that didn't make a lot of sense. A lot of people would congratulate me on my pregnancy during my period. I don't know if anyone could relate to that. It was very extreme. Bowel movements could swing from diarrhea to constipation at any given day. During ovulation time, I would be bleeding. Everything would just be a lot of pain. And I went on like that for a lot of years until I finally just said, let me go to a doctor. One doctor told me, hormones change over time, and maybe this is just how your period is changing. Take some Aleve. I did. Aleve could only get you but so far. It got to a point where I couldn't get up and go to work. And I'm a workaholic. If I can't go to work, then that's fighting words for me. Like, I'm ready to fight. Why can't I go to work? I eventually found a specialist, and we went in for a laparoscopy. And by the time I had the surgery, I was stage 4. She saw that the left side of my uterus and colon were just plastered together. And she basically told me that, she'd rather see me have a bowel obstruction rather than actually treat it. So I went on for 4 more years, just managing my pain, taking Aleve, changing my diet, losing weight. I did a lot of things to manage the symptoms. I took acupuncture. I felt like that was a great deal of work or help. I fasted every now and again, and I changed my eating habits for the time of day. And around this time last year, I went into urgent care for just a random chest cold and was rushed straight to the emergency room because my lung had collapsed. And I thought that was really just strange. I had no idea why that would happen. And the doctors thought possibly it was a bleb. They didn't see a bleb on a CAT scan, but I ended up going home after 2 days. And within 24 hours of me going home, my lung collapsed again. I went back and I found a surgeon that just so happened to ask me if I had endometriosis. And I had a pleurodesis, and it turned out that the disease was all over my diaphragm. So that was treated. And afterwards, I said, well, if it made it up to my diaphragm, I can only imagine what my pelvis looks like at that point. Now, at this point, I was not having bowel movements whatsoever. I had a colonoscopy. The doctors thought I looked normal. So I really didn't understand what was going on. And good old friendly Google, I found Dr. Sechkin, and I went in to see him. He ordered an MRI and CAT scan right away and was able to say, okay, you have some very severe endometriosis and we need to go ahead and have surgery. I went in for surgery in July. 9 hours later, after a colon resection, left ovary removed. My belly button had to be removed in resection because I had so much pain. My bladder had to be reconstructed. It was a full-on mess, but when I woke up, I immediately felt better. So I say this to say that I felt lucky because it was only 3 surgeries. It's only been 4 years of hell, even though this is probably symptoms that I experienced my whole life or since having my period. But I think just kind of making sure I kept fighting and talking and looking for the right people and not believing when doctors were telling me, oh, it's just your period, this is what it is. I kind of said, okay, something is off. I suffer from a lot of anxiety. I have days where I am not in the mood to talk about it. There are times where I still feel chest symptoms where, oh my gosh, my lung is about to collapse again. You never know if you're going into panic mode or this is actually happening. You really just don't know. But speaking to Melissa and hearing everyone's stories, it brings a lot of encouragement. I still exercise regularly. I still watch my diet. I still use Chinese herbs. I still do acupuncture. I keep in touch with my doctors. And I make noise when it's time to make noise. I no longer ignore my symptoms. And that is my story. Thank you for everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, ladies. This was unbelievably moving and meaningful, and this is exactly why this day happens and why it's so important. Thank you so much. Any questions? Yep.
In all of your cases, kind of a delay in diagnosis was part of the story. I have two boys. They were brought up watching endometriosis videos, hearing me talk about endometriosis, traveling to meetings and attending and hearing other people talk about endometriosis. My older boy, by the time he was older and dating, he diagnosed endometriosis correctly in 2 of his girlfriends. So, you know, a little education at home goes a long way.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hello, how are you? First, I'd like to start by thanking you all so much. I was just wondering how we as patients can connect with you or with other people like ourselves. I'm not requesting a phone number, but I know for me...
I'll totally give you my phone number. Totally.
Can we start a mailing list outside to just all connect? I'm really new on my journey. I'm still not even sure exactly what I have. I don't know where to turn, so...
Yeah, just come up to us.
That's a great idea.
Thank
If you
you.
want to talk to Nina at the front desk, we will collect names and numbers and we'll create some sort of communication that everybody who wants to be a part of can be a part of. I think that's a great idea.
Facebook group of this group if anybody's interested.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if we could start maybe a patient day, like Facebook group.
Absolutely. Great idea.
We can
Thank
all
you.
connect.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you all for doing this. What do you guys use for, are you guys on anything now after surgery? Like any medications, hormones, birth control?
I am on a continuous dosage of birth control, so every 3 months I would get my period. I am a huge advocate for acupuncture. I felt like it absolutely helped with my pain. Dietary restrictions. I know for me it's as simple as avoiding inflammatory foods, as well as the time of day that I'm eating. I do my best to eat in 8 to 10 hour intervals. If I start eating at 9, I stop eating at 5 or 6, and that really allows for my body to heal at night, digest food properly, just kind of give it some sort of aid. Exercise is a really big deal. Talking about it, having emotional support. Meditation is a big one, which I really need to work on big time. But I would say in the past year, I've gotten more comfortable talking, and the talking really, really helps, and having people support you is a big, big one. And loads of vitamins. Does everyone have like
I
a
take
cocktail
so
of
many vitamins. Like, so many. And acupuncture, I echo the acupuncture, meditation, fitness, but I don't do birth control anymore. I'm kind of against taking any.
So like no hormones, you're
No hormones,
hormone-free.
no medications. I'm kind
Okay.
of going the natural route.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in surgical menopause and I only have
Yeah.
1 kidney, so I actually firmly believe in not taking anything.
No
But
hormones.
nothing, no,
Got it.
because I'm afraid it'll cause more trouble. But I'm like Tanya, I try to eat during certain intervals, and really watching like salt and inflammatories, and I find that I feel pretty good. Even surgical menopause brings its own set of interesting
Correct.
symptoms, but
Yeah.
if you can take HRT, you have to find your own ways to manage it, but I don't take anything for it.
Yeah, I do acupuncture and Chinese medicine as well, the Chinese herbs. I do it daily. It has become a religion in my life right now, and it
Thank
works.
you.
I just want to say what these ladies are referring to is intermittent fasting. And if you look that up, there's a tremendous amount of new evidence that it's very anti-inflammatory, it's anti-cancer, it's really the new advisable way to do things. So, any other questions? Got it?
I just want to ask the panelists, as a man here who is supporting his wife, I think sometimes us guys, we kind of sweep things under the rug with our women. But from your perspective, what would you say that some of us men could probably do a little bit better in supporting our women when they go through these symptoms?
Read. That's really important. Reading, listening, and also being as observant, because sometimes your girlfriend and your wife is probably going through a lot of anxiety. If she's in a bad mood that day, that could very much so be the case, that she's just in a lot of pain, or emotionally it's just taxing on her and she's just not having a good day. Or she just wants to absolutely ignore it, and you see her just humping around, just kind of slumped over someplace, and she wants to ignore, push her to make sure she gets things checked out, kind of always be her advocate and just listen.
And maybe observe changes in behavior, because I'm like the original Energizer bunny, and I would run, not walk, and then when this started happening to me, I would be like, Melissa, I'd come home from work because work was not, I had to work, and I just go to sleep. So all of a sudden I was sleeping 14 hours a day and just complaining all the time, which is something I also never used to do. So observe changes in behavior and it really bring them almost up, because I think what happens to us as women, we all said this, you kind of learn to manage your pain and you carry on. You work, you take care of your kids, you take care of everyone else, but you forget to take care of yourself. My husband actually yelled at me to start researching Endo, because he's like, what's wrong with you? You're feeling worse, and you're not doing anything. And it was such a reminder, you have to take care of yourself. And I think women tend to forget to do that.
And the last thing I'll say is patience. My husband's a very patient man. I'm very lucky, but I wasn't ready to deal with it when it came back, and he was patient about letting me take it in my time. Though I do agree, if it's going on for months, you probably need to force her to do something, but I mentally wasn't ready to deal with it this last time.
Yeah, and for immediate help, if you see her feeling uncomfortable, give her a heating pad and give her a lot of fluids. Lemon water on honey, put some honey on it, make sure it's like hot stuff. And go with your partner, your girlfriend, your daughter to the doctor's office. Be there.
Thank you. Such a great question.
Thank you.
Okay, time for one more. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to race over to you.
Shameless plug while you're waiting, that protein bar that's in your bag, if you hate it, I didn't make it, but if you like it, I made that because of Endo and I needed something quick to eat on the go, so I made a protein bar. Sorry if you hate it.
I was just wondering how your anxiety and depression has been doing since your treatments and now. Are you still on anxiety and depression meds?
Well, not on any meds. I have anxiety. I have different anxiety. I feel much better physically. I feel quite remarkable, actually. But I always feel like, I'm getting older. I have one kidney. Am I just going to die of renal failure? Will it come back? Will it eat my other kidney? So I have kind of just uncomfortable thoughts about my ongoing well-being. And I really try, again, no plugs, but there's this app called Headspace, which does medication.
I use that too.
Yeah. And
I have that, yeah.
And
Awesome.
It's very hard for me to relax. I'm quite tense as a human being, so I'm trying to, I walk and I listen to this and just try to talk myself out of being anxious, because I'm very much afraid to take anything because of the kidney and how it may impact medicine and kidneys don't get along. So.
I'm not taking any medications, though I didn't before as well, but meditation's a huge thing, and breathing. If you're starting to freak out, take 3 deep breaths. It will change your body composition immediately. That's something I practice all the time, but I do live in constant fear that I'm sick again, and I hate that.
Yeah, I don't take any medication. To answer your question, if anxiety and depression has gotten better, no, it hasn't. No, it's not better. But I will say that if I start going down that rabbit hole, I immediately have programmed my brain to go to a place of gratefulness. Be grateful. What do you have things to be happy for? I got up and went to Barry's on my 3rd day of my period. That never happens. Be grateful. If you see other people actually suffering with terminal diseases, and I hate when people compare having endometriosis with like cancer, because it does both affect the quality of your life, but be grateful that it's this. You're a fighter. Be grateful for the fighters that are your doctors and the community that supports you, and that almost always calms me down.
I'm not on any pills as well. If I feel anxious or I need to ask a question or I'm just worried, I reach out to my Endo sisters group and they calm me down just right away, just talking it out.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.